Today was the MLB trade deadline, and for today's video, we'll be talking about 3 winners and 3 losers from today's action. What's going on, guys? I'm Matt O'Leary, back with another video, and before we get started talking about the MLB trade deadline, first I want to do a plug. You can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You could also visit the website at Matt O'Leary. Yeah, MattO'LearyNY.com. I forgot my own website for a second. That was embarrassing. But MattO'LearyNY.com. And if you do notice, there's no microphone hanging in front of me. I'm not using my broadcast mic. I'm using instead a lapel mic. So it's going to look a little bit different. It might sound a little bit different. It's just going to do a test. And if I like it, I'll continue with it. If I don't, I'll switch back to the old view. But we're just going to try things out because why not? That's what we're doing. So let's talk a little bit about the trade deadline today, some winners and losers. We'll start with the winners first because I think that's going to be more exciting. And for me, I got to go with the Los Angeles Dodgers. A couple reasons. They acquired Manny Machado and Brian Dozier. They're the highlights of the Dodgers activity at the deadline and leading up to the deadline. And it seems like they are finally going all in for a World Series. And I know you might be saying, Matt, why are you saying finally? Haven't they been trying the last few years? Yes, but last year they were a game away from winning the World Series. And what happened was, obviously, they lost to the Houston Astros. But when you follow that up, when you lose a World Series, especially by one game, you have to go into the next year and try to improve your team. And they headed in with a similar roster this year. So at the deadline, they tried to put themselves over the top for the National League, and I commend them for it. I think it's a great move. Machado's a stud, obviously. His 162-game career average numbers is 283 with 32 home runs and 89 RBIs. That's nuts for a shortstop that's just turned 26 years old. So he likely signed long-term there also. So, I mean, good for them. They gave up a lot to get him, but I think it's going to be worthwhile. Then Dozier can play second, which has been a huge hole for the Dodgers this year. And yes, he's not hitting well with the bat, hitting the low 200s right now, in the 220s, but he does provide some pop, and he can play the position well. So if he goes back to what he once was, he's 31 years old, so it's not like he's a long-term answer, but as a whole right now, I think this fits 100% for the Dodgers. So I commend them for going for it. That's one of my winners. Another one is the Pirates, and I've seen mixed reviews. Some people think the Pirates were losers at the deadline. Others think they're winners. For me, I think landing Chris Archer is actually a pretty big deal for them. He's 29 years old, has a career ERA of 3.69. He's been struggling with the Rays this year, but he's controllable. He's not a free agent until 2022. So you have a long time to go before you have to worry about Chris Archer, and he gives some stabilization to the rotation, especially after you traded away Garrett Cole. So I think that was a really good move for the Pirates. And they're looking to contend with the Brewers and the Cubs in that division. That's a very tough division with those two at top. So if you want to compete with them, kind of like what they did just a few years ago when it was the Cubs and the Cardinals, you have to go out and make moves like that. And I'm glad that the Pirates did. And I think Archer's a really underrated pitcher. I think part of his issue was he was playing for such a really poor team, poor organization. So that's why he's been struggling. And coming over to the National League should help too. As for my third and final one for the winners, I'm going with the New York Yankees. And I know this one, they might not necessarily made like a huge flashy move. They didn't land to the ground. They didn't land Harper or someone like that. But they added Lance Lynn, which gives them really good depth at a position of need, which is starting pitcher. And then Zach Britton as well is a huge deal for them. They already had a very solid bullpen. They added to that, even improved it as a lefty option coming out of the bullpen. Brian Cashman is a genius, and I wish he was the general manager of my team, and he should be treated as such. He's a genius, so we should give him the recognition that he deserved for what he's done with this team, especially the last couple of years, and how they remained competitive through their rebuild. Really impressive stuff. Now on to the losers. I also have 3 losers, and one of them is the Washington Nationals, who are currently laying a beatdown on the New York Mets, but we'll save that topic for another day. As for why the Nationals are on the loser board, they pretty much just stayed put. No, they didn't have to trade a Bryce Harper, but they could have moved some expiring contracts and did a similar thing to what the Yankees did in 2016. They could have moved a Gio Gonzalez, a Daniel Murphy, a Ryan Madsen, and got some prospects back to build for the future. Because let's face it, they are not going anywhere this year. They're not going to make the playoffs. Right now, the Phillies and the Braves are ahead of them fighting for the National League East, and I find it very hard to believe that the Nationals could be a wild card team this year. I know that you're trying to convince Bryce Harper to stay. I get that. I know his name was brought up, but listen, you have bigger fish to fry. Punt on the season and figure it out for 2019. That's what I would have been doing. Which then leads us to our second loser, which is the New York Mets, a familiar topic on this YouTube channel. The reason why they're considered losers is because they too stayed pat for the most part. Yeah, they traded Cabrera away, they traded Familia away, but they could have did a lot more. They probably should have dealt one of their starting pitchers, picked one, and try and get some prospects back for a much-needed rebuild. Why Jose Bautista and Devin Mesoraco are still on this team is a huge question mark. Both of them should have been flipped for assets to a contender. I don't get that one at all. The Mets have 3 general managers right now. No, that is not a joke. And I saw a tweet today that one of the executives in Major League Baseball, an unnamed one, said he wasn't even sure who he should be contacting when it comes to players on the Mets, which is a scary thought. This team is in such a dysfunction right now. This all falls on Jeff and Fred Wilpon, and Rob Manfred has to step in and do something because this is just utterly ridiculous. And then my third loser is the Oakland A's. Yes, they acquired Familia, which I thought was a fantastic move for Oakland, but they should have done more. Billy Beane sucks, okay? I know they made the movie Moneyball about him, but that's the last guy that deserves a movie because he is a awful general manager and executive. They will never contend with him making decisions. They basically made a movie about a guy who can't get out of the ALDS. I know they're a small market team and they're on a budget, but he has traded away so many talented players and gotten absolutely nothing in return for it. They made the ALCS in 2006. That was it. That's the highlight of his tenure. And they should have done more. They should have went out and tried to be competitive because they could make a run at that second wild card spot. Yes, Seattle and the Yankees seem like the most likely options who will be playing that wild card game for the American League, but Oakland's not out of it. If they made a big splash, they have the prospects to do it. They could have been a little more competitive, and I don't think that's what they're trying to do, or this isn't the route that they are going to go. They're going to hoard their prospects, and by the time they get here and pan out, they'll have to trade them because they won't be able to afford anybody. It's just an endless cycle here. So those are my winners and losers. Let me know what you think in the comments. Comment below if you agree with me, or comment your winners and losers, and we'll hit it off in the comments. If you don't want to do that, and I'm more likely to respond on Twitter, so follow me there at Matt O'Leary NY. You should also check out my merch. Listen, I'm not conceited. I don't think you want to buy merch of me. It's New York sports merch. So just spin-offs on all the New York sports teams. Check it out. I'll link it below. And of course, visit the website mattolearyny.com for all your New York sports needs. If you like the video, please subscribe. If you really liked it, give it a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you next time.